Melakim Bête, 2 Kings chapter 4. And a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared Yah, and the lender has come to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. And Elisha said to her, What should I do for you? Inform me. What do you have in the house? And she said, Your female servant has none at all in the house except a pot of oil. And he said, Go borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels. Do not get a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour into all those vessels and set aside the filled ones. So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out. And it came to be, when the vessels were filled, that she said to her son, Bring me another vessel. But he said to her, There is not another vessel. And the oil ceased. So she went and informed the man of Elohim, and he said, Go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. And it came to be on a day that Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a prominent woman, and she took hold of him to eat some food. And it came to be, as often as he passed by, that he turned in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband, Look, I know that this is a set-apart man of Elohim, who passes by us continually. Please, let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him there, and a table and a chair and a lampstand. And it shall be, whenever he comes to us, let him turn in there. And it came to be on a day that he came there, and he turned into the upper room and lay down there. And he said to Gehazi his servant, Call the Shunammite woman. So he called her, and she stood before him. And he said to him, Please say to her, Look, you have gone to all this trouble for us. What is there to be done for you? Should I speak on your behalf to the sovereign or to the commander of the army? And she answered, I am dwelling among my own people. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Well, she has no son, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. So he called her, and she stood in the doorway. And he said, About this appointed time next year you shall embrace a son. And she said, No, my master, man of Elohim, do not lie to your female servant. And the woman conceived and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had spoken to her. And the child grew, and it came to be on a day that he went out to his father, to the reapers. And he said to his father, My head, my head. And he said to his servant, Take him to his mother. So he took him and brought him to his mother, and he sat on her knees till noon, and died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of Elohim, and shut the door on him, and went out. And she called to her husband and said, Please send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys, so that I hurry to the man of Elohim and return. And he said, Why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath. And she said, It is well. And she saddled the donkey and said to her servant, Drive and go. Do not slow down, except I speak to you. And she went and came to the man of Elohim at Mount Carmel. And it came to be, when the man of Elohim saw her at a distance, that he said to his servant Gehazi, See the Shunammite woman. Please run now to meet her, and say to her, Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, It is well. And she came to the man of Elohim at the hill, and she took hold of him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of Elohim said, Leave her alone, for her being is bitter in her, and Yah has hidden it from me, and has not revealed it to me. And she said, Did I ask a son of my master? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? And he said to Gehazi, Gird up your loins, and take my staff in your hand, and go. When you meet anyone, do not greet him, and when anyone greets you, do not answer him, and you shall lay my staff on the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, As Yah lives and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And he rose and followed her. And Gehazi went on ahead of them and laid the staff on the face of the child. But there was no voice and there was no hearing. So he went back to meet him and reported to him, saying, The child has not awakened. And Elisha came into the house and saw the child was dead, lying on his bed. And he went in and shut the door behind the two of them and prayed to Yah. And he went up and lay on the child and put his mouth on his mouth and his eyes on his eyes and his hands on his hands, and stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. And he returned and walked back and forth in the house, then went up and stretched himself out on him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi and said, Call the Shunammite. So he called her, and she came in to him, and he said, Pick up your son. Then she went in and fell at his feet and bowed herself to the ground and picked up her son and went out. And Elisha returned to Gilgal, and the scarcity of food was in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said to his servant, Put on the large pot and cook stew for the sons of the prophets. And one went out to the field to gather plants and found a wild vine and gathered wild cucumbers from it, filling the skirt of his garment, and came and sliced them into the pot of stew, though they did not know what they were. They then served it to the men to eat, and it came to be, as they were eating the stew, that they cried out and said, O men of Elohim, there is death in the pot. And they were unable to eat it. And he said, Then bring some flour. And he put it into the pot and said, Serve it to the people to eat. And there was no evil matter in the pot. Now a man from Baal Shalisha had brought the man of Elohim bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley bread, and newly ripened grain in his knapsack. And he said, Give it to the people to eat. And his servant said, What? Do I set this before 100 men? And he said, Give it to the people to eat. For thus said Yah, Eat and have some left over. And he set it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to the word of Yah.